Hey guys, this is Roger Goforth with Apologetics in Motion. You can find us on the internet at www.apologeticsinmotion.wordpress.com. You can find us also on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and I'm glad you're here with us today. Glad you're here with us. Today we are going to be talking specifically about worldview. If you caught us last week, we did an introduction to apologetics in general, answering the question, what is apologetics and why do we need it? I encourage you to go back, listen to our past episode. Also, we started our Tuesday broadcast where we are going through the Gospel of John. You can catch that as well. Just go to our links, like I said, at apologeticsinmotion.wordpress.com. Follow us on Facebook. You'll get access to all of our podcast links there as well. Last week on our apologetics portion of the Apolocast, we talked about apologetics. What is it and why do we need it? Of course, the Bible teaches, 1 Peter, it says that honoring Christ as Lord, be prepared to give a defense. And we spoke about the Greek term apologia. Apologia is simply a defense, and apologetics is the study, the practice, the principles of defending your faith. It's not about winning an argument, it's about winning the soul. So last week we began specifically talking about worldview. What is worldview? Again, worldview is simply defined as the lens through which you interpret the world around you. And everyone has a worldview. So I want to talk today answering the question, what is your worldview? And we're going to begin this discussion. We probably won't continue. We probably won't finish it. We'll continue it a little bit later on. And just that being said, I wanted to start off with just a quick mini cast, a small podcast that would be convenient for those short drives down the road, for those who are busy. But I found quite quickly, especially last week as we were going into the Gospel of John, that 15 minutes isn't nearly long enough to dig into any meaningful discussion. So we're going to be exploring our options. Just stay up to date. We'll keep you informed as to the changes we may be making to our podcast. If that's the case, we may have to move to a different platform other than Spreaker. But again, we're going to be looking at that. But today, I don't want to waste any time that we do have in our 15 minutes. So let's talk about worldview. Worldview matters. We don't hear much about the significance of recognizing our worldview, but we should. Some people say that they really don't have a worldview, but that's about as silly as looking at your face in the mirror and saying that you don't have eyes. It takes eyes to look at your face and to choose to deny its existence. In the same way, our opinions, prejudices, perspectives on our life experiences are filtered through our worldview. So the obvious question for us all is not, do you have a worldview, but what is your worldview? Matt Slick from the Christian Apologetics Research Ministry. You can find him at carm.org. He does some great things on YouTube as well. Again, his name is Matt Slick from Carm. He gives this excellent definition of the worldview. He says, your worldview forms the basis of how you interpret reality. Your worldview is a lens through which you look at the world. Your worldview shapes your moral opinions. It affects what you believe about God, marriage, politics, social structures, environmental concerns, educational requirements, economics, the raising of children, what kind of foods to eat, etc., etc. It affects everything because all of that which is around you and all of that which you interact with must be interpreted and must be understood in light of your worldview. So in short, our worldview determines the way we answer all of life's questions, from the small to the significant. Whether we choose to recycle or litter, whether we worship God or reject His existence, is determined by the worldview that we embrace. So, as I spoke about last week, at the end of our program, I mentioned briefly that there are two primary worldviews. Although one could possibly divide the various worldviews into endless categories depending on the particular points of emphasis, every individual ultimately falls into one of two camps: the secular humanist or the theistic worldview. In other words, man's worldview is determined by his overall belief about God. Of course, we can continue to create distinctions and divisions within each of these positions, but for the sake of simple introduction, we only want to look at this broad picture. So the way we view the world stems from our response to the 5 ultimate questions that dominates the mind of every person. Again, your worldview is dependent upon your view of God, and then the way you view the world stems from your response to the 5 questions that dominates the mind of every person. The 5 questions are simply this: where did we come from? Why are we here? What's wrong with the world? How do I know truth? Right or wrong? How do I know truth? That's a question of epistemology. And 5th, where are we going? So where do we come from? Why are we here? What's wrong with the world? How do I know what's right and wrong? And where are we going? Those are the 5 questions that our worldview stems from our response to these 5 ultimate questions. But from these 5 questions flows a myriad of other important questions, such as the question of purpose, evil, morality, justice, eternity, etc., etc. But even these questions are answered on the basis of our response to the first 5. So it's all about where you start. The division between the secular humanist and the theist is found in our response to the first question. And our answer to the first question heavily influences every other question that can be asked. And the first question, of course, is, where did we come from? The theist, now this group includes Christians, Muslims, and Jews, among other groups that affirm the existence of a God. The theist believes that the universe and all of humanity finds its origin in the divine. From that basic premise, man's existence is filled with purpose and destiny, and morality has meaning. On the other hand, those who reject the notion of divine origin, i.e. the secular humanists, seek to answer these essential questions by appealing to observable nature. Our origin, purpose, basis for morality, and ultimate end can be discovered within ourselves, and then there is no supreme objective standard apart from man. So when we consider the 2 basic worldviews, who's right? The key to determining the reliability of any claim, whether it's scientific or religious, is the test of consistency. Can the person claiming that there is no God and that there is no objective moral standard or transcendent meaning for life truly live consistently with such a claim? Or does he find himself in endless contradiction as he loves his family, as he demands justice in society, as he seeks to be a kind and generous neighbor? Think of that for a moment. A secular humanist who does not believe that there is a God, therefore his life has no transcendent meaning, therefore all of his moral compass is subjective rather than objective. Why does he live as if there is objective reality? Everyone lives as if God exists. Even if they deny it with their words, they profess it with their lives. There is a natural sense of right and wrong in each person. Everyone has a notion that lying, stealing, and murder are bad things. But the secular humanist can't give a consistent reason as to why these things are so. But for the other side, the theist, there is a profound consistency between what we believe and how we live. For human life and dignity actually matters because man is made in the image of God. Justice, mercy, love, and compassion are meaningful virtues because God has given us His Word and has placed His law upon our hearts to show us His character and commands. Our universe is found to be both beautiful and orderly because God's glory is seen in His creation. Apart from a theistic worldview, quite frankly, we couldn't make sense of what we see, experience, or believe. And so, again, this has been a very short podcast because I want to take next week, that will be next Thursday, God willing. I'm sure you guys are realizing that this is Friday instead of Thursday. Put out a quick message on them internets to tell you guys that we had some technical difficulties yesterday. And then, again, this is a way of prayer request. This morning I had to take my wife to have some outpatient procedures done. Well, we've been in and out of the hospital for a couple of weeks now. It's having some health issues. I'd ask you guys to pray for that. But again, life goes on. Things happen. Schedules have to change. Thank God I'm not held to someone else's schedule. I can do these podcasts at my convenience, and I try to keep these things consistent for your convenience. But next Thursday, I would like to go into the details of what it means to build a biblical worldview. So today I kind of gave just the basics of what worldview is. How do we define the two primary worldviews, the secular versus the theistic? What are the differences, and where is the consistency? Next week we're going to go into what it means to build a biblical worldview. And again, I want you guys to keep up with us on our Tuesday episodes as we go into the Gospel of John. So the next time I see you will be on Tuesday. We will be looking at John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, and how John began to build a case for the deity of Jesus Christ. And how can we use those passages of Scripture to defend the truth about who Jesus is and why he came against those who would argue otherwise. So this has been Roger Goforth with Apologetics in Motion. I hope you guys will catch up with us in the next weeks and months to come as we continue to build a podcast. And God bless, and see you next time. Amen.